Okay, the time being 6:32, and this being the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel, I will call to order this, the Monday, July 28th, 2025 meeting of the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel. This meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to modifications made to the open meeting law by the legislature of the Commonwealth. We have members of the panel that are joining us here in person at the Great Hall at Plymouth's Town Hall. We have other members of the panel that are joining us virtually over the Zoom webinar platform. And members of the public may be joining us here in person at the Great Hall or virtually over the Zoom webinar platform. The login information for the Zoom webinar platform is included on the agenda that is posted on the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel section of the Commonwealth's website for our purposes. We will begin tonight's meeting, as we do all meetings of the NDCAP, by going through a roll call of our members. We'll start over here with Mr. Noyes, with those physically present, and then we will circle back to those attending via Zoom. So without further ado, Mr. Noyes.
Dave Noyes, Holtec Decommissioning International.
Joe McDonough, Holtec, Acting Vice President.
Kelly O'Brien, Local 369 Representative.
Curtis Little, for the town of Plymouth Selectmen, for Select Board.
Pine Dubois, appointed by the Speaker of the House.
Mike Fortini, appointed by the Senate Minority Leader.
Mary Gatzlick, appointed by the Minority Leader of the Senate.
Kevin Canty, member of the Chair of the Plymouth Select Board and representative of the Plymouth Select Board on the NDCAP.
Jim Lampert, appointed by the Speaker of the House.
Mary Lampert, appointed by the Senate President.
Barry Potvin, a member of the Plymouth Board of Health. I was appointed by the President of the Massachusetts Senate.
Jack Priest, appointed by the Commissioner for the Department of Public Health. I'm the Division Director for the Radiation Control.
And then we'll go on to the Zoom with Mr. Bryant.
David Bryant from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency.
Thank you. Mr. Gottlieb.
Andrew Gottlieb, representing the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, appointed by Governor Baker.
Mr. Wade.
Greg Wade, representing the Massachusetts Department of Public Utilities.
Mr. Callahan.
Chris Callahan, representing the Executive Office of Health and Human Services.
And that's everybody, right? All right, those are those of us that are in attendance presently. We may be joined by some other members later, but we do have a quorum of members in attendance. That's always a good start. That brings us into the next item on our agenda, that being the reading of 14 CMR 188.00, an act to promote energy diversity, or rather relevant portion thereof. The panel shall serve in an advisory capacity only and shall not have authority to direct decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. The duties of the panel shall be to commence public meetings beginning on or about June 1st, 2017 at a frequency of quarterly until the shutdown of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station for the purpose of discussing issues related to decommissioning planning activities. To hold a minimum of 4 public meetings each year for the purpose of discussing issues related to the progress of decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station beginning on or about June 1st, 2019, or when the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station permanently ceases power operations, provided that the panel may hold additional meetings. To advise the governor, the general court, the agencies of the Commonwealth, and the public on issues related to the decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, with a written report being provided annually to the governor and to the energy committees of the general court. To serve as a conduit for public information and education on, and to encourage community involvement in matters related to the decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, and to receive written reports and presentations on the decommissioning of the station at its regular meetings. To periodically receive reports on the Decommissioning Trust Fund and other funds associated with decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, including fund balances, expenditures made, and reimbursements received. to receive reports regarding the decommissioning plans for the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, including any site assessments and post-shutdown decommissioning assessment reports, provide a forum for receiving public comment on these plans and reports, and to provide comment on these plans and reports as the panel may consider appropriate to state agencies and the owner of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station and in the annual report described in Clause 3. All right, so that brings us into the next item on our agenda, that being the Holtec report.
Mr. Chair, with your permission, I'd like to make a point of order.
Okay.
Okay. I was looking at Session Law Acts of 2016, Chapter 188, Section 14, and under paragraph E, it states, majority of the panel's members shall constitute a quorum. The panel shall act only by a vote of a majority of its entire membership and only at meetings called by the chair. So the question I have is, that implies to me that if there are vacancies that haven't yet been filled, obviously there is no member present for those positions. And therefore, when we consider whether or not we need a certain number of votes to pass motions, it should be based not on the 21 positions that are available, but rather on the number of positions that have been filled.
But it is not written in that way. It says a majority of the entire membership, and that includes people that are not appointed. So that has come up previously. Unfortunately, for some of the appointing authorities, they fill vacancies slower than others. We are experiencing some of that presently, but the way that the statute is written, it requires a majority of the entire membership, whether the positions are filled or not, whether the people are present here or not. Mr. Lampert?
How many vacancies do we have?
I believe there's at least two. Because I believe there's one of the two Plymouth spots, and then we're still waiting for a replacement for Mr. Pickering, who I'm told will be here at the next meeting.
The replacement?
Yes. So unfortunately, regardless of the number of people that are appointed and the number of people that are in attendance, the quantum of vote remains a majority of entire membership, which is unusual because typically, for example, the Plymouth Select Board is 5 members, a quorum is 3 members, and all that is required to pass a motion in a meeting of 3 members is 2 members voting in the affirmative, because it's a majority of members present and voting. But for the way that this enabling statute is written, it requires a majority of the entire membership, whether they are present or not, whether they are appointed or not.
It's just a little confusing because obviously if someone hasn't been appointed, they don't attend the meetings and they cannot vote. They don't exist.
It is, in my opinion, not particularly well drafted, but I inherited it. I didn't write it, and I am simply living within the rules that were provided.
Okay, yes, we all have to. Thank you.
Yes, we do. Any other points of order before we move forward, or any other comments on the existing point of order? Hearing and seeing none, we will again move on to the Holtec report. We are joined by Mr. Noyes of Holtec Decommissioning International.
All right, good evening. Our July report starts with the swim lanes. Swim lanes have been, there have been no changes to the swim lanes, just to progress activities. Key milestones that have been accomplished since the last meeting has been to drain the reactor cavity and dryer separator pit to the Taurus. That was able to be accomplished following the completion of reactor vessel segmentation and demobilization. The next major milestone will be the submission of our license termination plan in September of this year. With respect to the other major swim lanes, demolition is covered in its own slide. With respect to the spent fuel management, just continue custodial responsibilities for the spent fuel assemblies that remain in our independent spent fuel storage installation. So as a result of that, there have been no changes to this graphic. The building demolition status is exactly the same. There is active demolition going on in the augmented off-gas building, which is the rectangular building that is at the middle left. With respect to the process buildings, they remain on target for demolition beginning in 2031 and 2032. So with the focus being on internal demolition activities, we have completed or in the process of a major demolition activity within the condenser bay of the plant. This specifically the gland seal condenser. The gland seal condenser was a component within the primary system that used steam that was associated with sealing the main turbine gland or seals. So it was radiological steam and had components on the skid that were asbestos containing material. So as the abatement and demolition activities associated with the gland seal condenser had to meet both the radiological standard and the asbestos standard, including an approved non-traditional work plan with the Mass DEP. For contingency plan actions, we updated at the last meeting the addition of 14 monitoring wells in Para 3 and 17 soil borings in the industrial area. We have completed the quarterly sampling for the second quarter. When we get those results and have the opportunity to be able to brief Mass DEP on the results of those samples, we'll present them at the next meeting. We are planning on removing the PCB soil pile. It's in Para 3 in the area directly off of Powerhouse Road during the third or fourth quarter of this year. For a water volume update, as discussed, we drained the water from the reactor cavity and dryer separator pit to the torus. Approximately 361,000 gallons was drained in that effort. The on-site water volume remains at 831,375 gallons. Heaters remain installed, and that's that second line should say in the spent fuel pool. There's no heaters in the reactor cavity currently. So heaters in the spent fuel pool are installed but remain de-energized. And we completed post-drain down torus water samples. We wanted to get another data set of the constituents, both radiological and non-radiological in the water that was drained from the reactor cavity and dryer separator pit to the torus. We're awaiting the results of those samples that were taken on the 9th of July. So with the completion of reactor segmentation demolition, which you see in those pictures, the left-hand picture is looking west from the dryer separator pit across the reactor cavity to the spent fuel gate. So the gate is what is separating the reactor cavity from the spent fuel pool. Spent fuel pool still remains full of water, as does the lower part of the reactor vessel. So below the area where you see the vessel studs, there's still approximately, I believe it's approximately at about 1,200 gallons within the reactor vessel itself. The activity that you see on the right-hand side are individuals that are performing encapsulation activities. So what we're doing is we are essentially painting the surfaces of the dryer separator pit and the reactor cavity. That prevents any residual contamination from becoming airborne as those surfaces dry and as air flows change. For regulatory update, we did exit the second quarter inspection with no findings of more than minor significance. The focus of this quarter's inspection with the NRC was on our problem identification and resolution program, general decommissioning operations, operational radiation exposure, and solid radioactive waste management and transportation, including the observation of the drain down of the reactor cavity and dryer separator pit. We do remain on track for license termination plan submittal in September. For site source term reduction for waste being transported, radioactive waste being transported for disposal, we are currently just over 25,000 cubic feet and 644 curies of activity for the year 2025, bringing the overall project to almost 305,000 cubic feet and a total activity of over 2,500 curies of activity. And I did provide Mr. Lampert the requested information regarding the total of the waste shipment in tons versus volume.
Do you recall that number? I don't have mine written down either.
It's approximately 8 million. I can double check it, but it's over 8 million pounds. And that ends the presentation pending questions.
Mr. Lampert?
Yeah, just 2 or 3 days. First off, on the LTP, will that be available to the panel after it's submitted?
Yes, yeah, after it's formally submitted, becomes a matter of public record, yeah.
Okay. Same related question on the July sampling. Well, let me start off first. Did DEP and DPH take any part of that sampling, take part in that sampling?
They did not.
Have they been provided any of the split samples?
They were given the opportunity and both declined. But we will make the results of that sampling available. We'll post that to the webpage as soon as we get that information.
And just one final question going over the gallonage. Spent fuel pools still have around 400,000 gallons in it?
Yes, it does.
Okay, Mr. Priest?
Dave, for the panel, could you do just a brief, high-level, what constitutes the LTP which you're submitting to the NRC in September?
So there are 8 chapters in the license termination plan. It establishes the final end use of the facility, the assumptions associated with the extent of demolition, and DCGLs, which are the levels of constituent radionuclides that we have found so far during characterization, and a plan to continue to evaluate that as we continue with demolition. It sets the NRCs up for when they eventually approve that license termination plan. It allows them to be able to determine what their final status survey plan will be, and the extent to which they will come in and do alternate sampling. They'll do their own completely independent sampling, consistent with the sampling that we do during demolition.
Any other questions from other
Just a
panel?
comment, Mr. Candy.
Yeah,
Call on
Mr. Chair.
Mrs. Lampert first. She
Sure.
hasn't asked a question yet.
Yes, on the sampling that you did in the torus, did you have it look simply at mostly gamma and tritium, or did you look for the more complicated, if you will, radionuclides, including transuranics?
It was the full set, including hard to detect.
Okay.
Dr. Potvin?
Yes, about the spent fuel pool. I assume that water is going to remain there for some time yet.
Yes, we haven't yet scheduled there are 5 cassettes with Class BC waste that need to be transported out of the spent fuel pool, either direct to be shipped off-site or to be staged on-site, pending a new cast design that we've submitted to the NRC. So I suspect that it will probably be a year or more that the water will be in the spent fuel pool.
Okay, in that case, do you foresee needing to re-energize the submersible heaters during the winter months coming up?
We would expect to implement the heating regime that we did last year, again this year.
Maintaining the same temperature, even though, are there going to be workers any longer in the building?
There will be workers in the building, plus particularly below grade, we require an amount of heat addition to prevent pipe freezing. So yeah, there will still be workers doing demolition activities within the reactor building.
Thank you, Dave.
Did you, Mr. Lambert?
No, just a brief comment for those who, I'll put it this way, have nothing better to do. The NRC website has a great deal of information on it about the LTP and what's required to be in it. If you'll have the time to get into it and look at it just as a reference.
Okay. Mr. Gottlieb?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave, since you said the swim chart hadn't changed at all, is it fair to say that the schedule for decommissioning main core reactor building is predicated on the ability to discharge to Cape Cod Bay?
Yes, that remains the case. The schedule for demolition of the reactor and turbine building are driven by disposition of the water and a favorable decision, as we discussed in the last meeting.
And is there still no plan for alternatives were that not to happen?
We have not calculated another plan pending the current litigation, no.
So there's no way to estimate in the event that your permit is denied what the closure date actually might be?
Not at this time. If that were to happen, then we would perform that evaluation and make that date available.
And do you have any predetermined route by which, if you transport it, where it's going to go?
If we were to transport liquid waste?
Correct.
There are 2 options for transport. One would be 4,000 gallon transport directly by truck to Andrews, Texas. The other alternative would be 4,000 gallons by truck to a transload facility in western Pennsylvania, where those 4,000 gallon shipments could be consolidated into approximately 20,000 gallon rail shipment. We haven't decided on one or the other, but
right.
Those are
but
the 2 options.
We've been told in the past that part of the reason you prefer discharge to the bay is the transport would impact environmental justice communities. Is that still the position?
It is, and environmental justice also encompasses the fact that this is the community that benefited from the generation of the electricity for the 40 years that the plant operated. So to the extent possible, and to the extent that it's environmentally responsible, the waste should be dispositioned here.
But part of your rationale has been that the trucking route presents risk, transport route presents risk to environmental justice communities in prior events, in prior discussions, right?
That is part of the decision, yes. Yeah.
Okay. But when we had the hearing, you talked about in your sworn testimony that you actually haven't mapped a route. You don't know where it would go. How do we know that environmental justice communities are going to be impacted by the transport?
We don't specifically know that. The decision with respect to environmental justice right now is more leveraged on the responsibility to disposition the waste in the area where the people benefited from its use.
me see. It was announced not super long ago that Holtec is going to become a public company, right?
There's a portion of the company that will become public. I think specifically the small modular reactor business is slated to be a public offering, not the entire company.
So the company is splitting, and the portion that's doing the decommissioning will not be affected or part of the public offering, is that right?
I don't expect the decommissioning sites to be impacted by the public offering for the SMR unit.
That's not quite what I asked. What I'm asking is the ownership structure governing the decommissioning activity going to change as a result of the public offering?
I don't have any indication that it will.
What assurance might this panel or the Commonwealth have that the splitting up of the company and half a part of it going public does not impact the viability of the company to execute its responsibilities under your decommissioning contract and license with the Commonwealth?
Well, the agreement with the Commonwealth was not only signed by Holtec Decommissioning International, but was signed by representatives of Holtec and made assurances on behalf of the Holtec Corporation, the larger company.
I guess what I'm trying to get at is who's gonna own continued responsibility and of the decommissioning process, and what method of assurance do we have, does the public gonna have, that your public offering is not going to impede or take resources that would be necessary or expertise that would be necessary from the entity that's left over and transfer it over to the publicly owned entity for business development purposes?
I guess I'm not really understanding your question.
You're carving the company up, right? And you're leaving a portion of it doing decommissioning, and you're taking a portion of it, you just described it as the portion that would be doing modular reactor development. What is the method by which the public and the Commonwealth receive assurance that divvying up of resources and capabilities within Holtec is not going to materially impact the ability of Holtec to fulfill its obligations under the decommissioning rule?
I don't know how it could. The monies that are associated with the decommissioning of the site are dedicated to the decommissioning of the site. They're not monies that can be used for SMR development or be used as part of any public offering by any other entity. So the decommissioning funds are the decommissioning funds, and the NRC strictly regulates how those can be used.
Right, but we've not been made privy under assertion of proprietary rights that how money flows within the company. We will have, what knowledge will we be able to have about whether this, I don't know who's the subsidiary and who's the mothership in this arrangement, but is this public company going to be taking charges from the decommissioning piece? How is money and expertise going to flow if you have a public entity that is separate and apart from the decommissioning piece?
Yeah, I mean, resources of the decommissioning have to be used by decommissioning. Those resources can't be used for any other purpose, and that is fully regulated and overseen by the NRC.
But you also testified at the hearing that one of the reasons you chose this method of decommissioning was because it was allegedly faster than entombment or putting in mothballs, my term, and that it had the benefit of allowing the decommissioning entity, in this case Holtec, to take advantage of the expertise of people who worked at the facility because it was happening in a near-term basis. Is there going to be any kind of assurance provided that there will not be a talent or brain drain from the decommissioning side over to the new public side that's going to focus on growing the nuclear generation business.
I don't know what kind of commitment we could provide. The skill sets for individuals that are involved with development and siting of SMRs are different than the skill sets of the individuals that were associated with operating the plant and now decommissioning the plant. I don't believe that any of the associates that I work with on a regular basis are individuals that are going to move into SMR development. They're lifetime area people. They're committed to the work that's going on here.
Is there going to be any kind of public disclosure in the initial public offering that describes what the relationship, what's going to be left over? What's the entity called that's going to be dealing with the decommissioning after this thing goes public?
I don't think there'll be any change. It'll still be Holtec Decommissioning International, a subsidiary of Holtec International, and the owner of the property and the owner of the material will still be Holtec Pilgrim LLC, and that relationship will be unchanged.
So no impact whatsoever on anything to do with the decommissioning from your going public?
From my point of view, I don't see that there would be.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Noyes, in terms of you mentioned the environmental justice piece, that this is the community that benefited from the electrical generation.
Yes.
So I think it was back in January, but the select board had an opportunity to go and visit the ISO New England facility at Holyoke and view the grid of New England and how that feeds into the Quebec grid and the New York grid as well. So and I'm not an energy generation or energy grid professional, but my understanding is that a power plant within the grid in New England doesn't contribute specifically to the community that it's in, but rather to that grid on the whole. And so while Plymouth hosted and southeastern Plymouth County hosted the plant, it was all of New England, and by extension, when in times of higher demand that they couldn't meet, places like New York and Quebec that would benefit from the existence of Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station when it was operating. Would that be fair to say?
It would be fair to say. It's clear if you look at the distribution of power with respect to the ISO website, that when Pilgrim was operating, that the majority of that power ISO was crediting to their operational area.
Yes, so it's generated within the New England grid. It would be primarily used within the New England grid.
That's correct.
But that New England grid covers this New England.
It does.
Not just this area.
That's correct.
Right, okay. I just wanted to make sure that people understood that component. Mr. Lambert?
Did I understand you to say that Holtec International was a party to the settlement agreement? Because I don't believe that's accurate. My understanding is that the Commonwealth is, that Holtec Decommissioning Inc. is, and that Holtec Pilgrim is, but that Holtec International is not.
No, Holtec signed the state agreement. Holtec, HDI, and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are the three signatories.
Let me go back and take
And
another look at
Pam
that.
Cowan signed as a representative of Holtec.
But Holtec is not a named, International is not a named party in that agreement.
Yeah, I don't know whether the international is in there or not, but it was certainly the Holtec Corporation.
Okay. Yes.
Dave, on the water that you talked about in the fuel pool, drain down the cavity down to the Taurus, but you're still using the water in the fuel pool to heat to the winter months. Is that, so we still have, we didn't vent and drain RHR core spray or RBCW systems?
They're partially drained. I don't anticipate that we'll run any of those systems again. But we have the ability to be able to make up from the Taurus to the spent fuel pool and to heat using the spent fuel transfer system through the spent fuel heat exchanger to reactor building closed cooling water.
Cold cooling water, okay. Thank you.
Other questions from panel members? Yes, Mrs. Lampert.
Yes. If Mass Department of Public Health decided to request samples, could they get it?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's my question. And so the question, we'd like to hear at some point from Jack Priest, their rationale for not going after samples and do what you said in the sample report you took in 23, that before any release, and we know there are releases into the air, that you would take a hard look at harder to detect radionuclides and transuranics. So I think the public deserves an answer to that.
Okay. Any other questions from panel members? Hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Noyes. That brings us into the next item on our agenda, which would be the Interagency Working Group report. I know we are not yet fully represented by all the agencies due to Mr. Pickering not being replaced yet, although as was alluded earlier, we are anticipating that vacancy will be filled soon. Do we have, in light of that, do we have anything to report from the Interagency Working Group?
So we have no, they're still working through the litigation and lawsuit related to the discharge of effluents, and I have no update that I can comment on that. I know that the DEP was working with Holtec on their mass contingency plan for the items through that. Dave spoke about the gland seal asbestos work that was overseen with DEP in that plan, and that was successful. And that's all I have for an update.
Okay, Mr. Lampert.
Yeah, just a basic question here. It's now been a number of months since we've gotten a report from the IWG. Could you explain to us?
It's been 2 meetings.
That's a number of months. Basically, could you explain to us, because I think most of us are pretty unclear, as to exactly what the IWG does? Does it have a chair? Does it have regular meetings? Does it invite people in? Just generally, what has it actually done? And let's take it over the last 4 months. Because I think most of us just have utterly no idea.
So the IAG are the interagency working group of the state agencies. We review what was asked of the state agencies at this meeting, requests for information. We review upcoming agenda items that would be requested, and we're prepared to come in and present information when we're requested. We meet at least monthly, sometimes more often than that. And yes, we have a chair. It's overseen through the Department of Environmental Protection. And
who is the chair? Who is the chair?
Paulo.
And I guess, you've talked about reviewing things to and fro this panel. Do you also get involved in reviewing the status of the decommissioning?
Let's not talk over each other.
Could you characterize it? It's not to and fro. We look at the agenda that's provided to us. We look at, those things are very specific.
But what do you, okay, you look at the agenda, and I'm still confused as to exactly what happened. You look at the agenda, and there's obviously the report on where Mr. Noyes gives on a regular basis. There had typically are other reports and questions. Do you dig into that at all? The substance of it as opposed to simply that it's on the agenda?
Right, so there are different agencies that are engaged in the activities that are going on at Holtec. So the DEP is involved with mass contingency, they're involved with the PFAS investigation that's going on, they're involved with the asbestos work that's required as you go through that power plant. You know, there's a lot of asbestos there. The DEP is very engaged in that to ensure that that material is properly handled, that the workers are safe that are managing through that. The financial items that are on that swim lane are under review by the Attorney General's office through Seth Schofield and his staff. And they will brief out the team if there was a discussion or a planned discussion, for example, tonight on the financial status of the decommissioning plan. In advance, we would have discussed that at the IIG and put together some talking points so we could come in and intelligently present that information to the panel and to the members of the public that desire that information.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions from panel members regarding the IWG as it stands presently?
I didn't hear
Ms.
the
Dubois?
answer to who's chair of the subcommittee.
Could you repeat who the chair is?
Yes, it's Paulo,
Paul,
who you met.
Paul, what's the last name?
I just had a brain cramp. Give me a second, I'll give it right back to you.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Any other, while we await that answer, any other questions? All right. So there are none. So we'll move forward and circle back as to that. So that would bring us to the next item, which is historic and current treatment methods of liquid and gaseous effluents. We're joined once again by Dave Noyes of Holtec.
Thank you. So for the purposes of the presentation, we've talked a little bit about some of the historic operational water treatment methods. And the reason why that's important is because it's the same water. The water has essentially been unchanged. The water that was involved in operation of the plant is now the water that is providing the shielding for decommissioning activities. So it's important to review how that water was treated during its operational period. So we had similar goals for water treatment, both in decommissioning and in operational water treatment, specifically to maintain a high degree of water quality, to maintain worker radiological dose as low as reasonably achievable, with a high degree of visual clarity during refueling and maintenance activities. The one difference was that during operational activities, we needed to maintain an ultra high degree of primary system water quality. And that was to prevent the potential for any nuclear fuel damage and accelerated damage to components that were operating at high temperature and pressure. So components that were exposed to chemicals, particularly salt water, in that high pressure, high temperature environment would corrode relatively quickly and could result in a high degree of damage to the nuclear fuel. So it was important that during the operational period that the water was maintained with an ultra high degree of purity. So the systems and equipment that have been used during operation, we used demineralized makeup water. So we needed to purify the Plymouth town water for pilgrim use. The criteria for Plymouth water quality would not have met the operational criteria for the plant. So as a result of that, we had to run Plymouth town water through demineralization. And then during the operation of the plant, We used condensate demineralizers for mechanical filtration and demineralization, and also utilized a reactor water cleanup system. Both of those were designed to remove corrosion products and to identify, detect possible seawater leaks and remove seawater at low levels before it could result in that corrosion that I talked about earlier. In addition to those systems, we had the rad waste treatment system. That was a system that reclaimed water that leaked within the plant and actually performed two functions. It cleaned that water to allow us to be able to restore it as makeup water, but also improve the quality of that water to reduce the radiological ion concentrations to allow it to be discharged during the operational period. We further maintained operational water treatment quality by keeping the water in the torus clean. Because of the fact that the torus was part of primary containment, it prevented us from being able to continuously filter the torus. The only time that we could filter the torus was during refueling outage periods. So that was typically done on a 10-year interval, and the means when the plant was operating to implement water quality standards or to improve water quality standards in the torus was done by feed and bleed. So we would add water of known higher quality, and we would discharge batches of water of lesser quality. We used trinuclear filters during refueling and maintenance activities. They are cartridge filters that were used for removing impurities at the point of which activities were being performed that had the potential to negatively impact water quality. And we continuously operated the plant's spent fuel pool filtering and demineralization system. In decommissioning, we still have the rad waste treatment system that provides for the purification of water that's collected from system leakage. That's still available to us on an as-needed basis. The decommissioning has afforded us the ability to be able to continuously treat the water in the torus, so we can continuously filter that water and not have to rely on less efficient means like feeding and bleeding to maintain a high degree of quality in the torus. For refueling floor treatment, rather than tri-nuke filters, we have a new system that's been installed that has a very fine micron rating, and that allows us to be able to remove any impurities at the point at which activities are being performed before they have the ability to degrade overall water quality. And we still have our spent fuel pool filtering and demineralization system the way we did when the plant was operating. So that spent fuel pool filtering and demineralization system has a micron or fine rated filter to remove particles. It also has a demineralizer that contains charcoal to remove organics and mixed bed resins, so both anion and cation resins to remove ionic impurities from the water. The advantage of the spent fuel pool filtering and demineralization system is it allows us flexibility in determining the mix of charcoal and the mix of resins in order to most effectively clean any impurities that are present in the water. We have implemented improved removal capabilities. The system suction for the spent fuel pool filtering system was by means of a thing called a skimmer surge tank. Essentially, because of the fact that no piping connections were allowed below the level at which fuel was in the spent fuel pool, water was taken off the surface, and then that water was purified and returned to the spent fuel pool. Now we've been able to modify that system to remove water so that the suction of that filtering and demineralization now happens down lower in the volume. So rather than just the water that is on the surface being skimmed off, gives us the ability to fully circulate the water that exists in that spent fuel pool. The refuel floor water treatment design, again, the standalone system allows us to operate with a suction located where segmentation and waste loading activities were occurring to minimize the removal of impurities. Has ultra-fine micron particle filtration. The filter element gets exchanged before loading, degrades its effectiveness. Excuse me. And the filter element that was used for these activities was exchanged 13 times during our reactor vessel segmentation activities. For tourist water treatment, again, we no longer have to rely on feed and bleed for water quality. We can continually treat the torus through, again, an ultrafine micron filter. The filter elements, again, get exchanged before the loading degrades effectiveness. And the system is flexible, provides us with the future modification capability to add demineralization in addition to filtration of that system. Rad waste demineralizer still exists in the configuration which it supported the plant when it was operating. Currently contains 10 cubic feet of charcoal and 20 cubic feet of ion exchange resin. And again, we have the ability to be able to vary that resin and charcoal mix based on radiological and non-radiological impurity concentrations. So the proof of the system effectiveness is in the quality of the water that it makes. This information comes from our submittal to the NEPTES for our permit amendment request. The water that is in the treated water concentration, that's the left-hand column, those are all of the pollutant levels that were identified during our treated water sample. That treated water sample shows concentrations of those specific pollutants. The other columns that you see there are for those same parameters. The EPA aquatic life criteria for saltwater impact to saltwater species. The discharge limits that are associated with other outfalls that are already allowed by the current permit, excuse me, and the intake water concentration in ambient seawater, that which already exists in ocean water. So 4 of the items that were above detection limits for pollutants are less than discharge limits that already exist in the NEPTES permits for other outfalls. The other 7 are below the intake water concentration that already exists in ambient seawater. So of the 11 non-radiological pollutants that were identified in treated water, 7 of them are already at less than values that they exist in seawater, and the other 4 are at levels less than what has already been approved in our permit to discharge at other outfalls. For gaseous effluent, the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection concluded in July of last year that we had accurately evaluated that a hypothetical evaporation of all of the water that existed at the time within a 1-year period of time would result in a very small fraction of the air permitting threshold for regulated pollutants, and therefore did not need to be reported to the state. For radiological impacts, the total radiological effluents are limited to 500 millirem per year. That's per NRC regulations 10 CFR 1301. And for specific isotopic limits, that's in 10 CFR 20.1302. Additionally, NRC regulations require any dose to the general public from releases to be maintained as low as reasonably achievable. And by the NRC definition, as low as reasonably achievable takes into account the state of technology, the economics of improvements in relation to the state of technology, the relation to benefits to the public health and safety, and other societal and socioeconomic considerations. So with the NRC's regulations being that it should be maintained as low as reasonably achievable, HDI further restricts our releases, total releases from all sources. So this is radiation that's emitted in the form of energy from airborne releases and from any liquid releases when they occur, to less than 25 millirem per year from all sources. So again, the NRC regulation is 500 millirem per year. We further restrict it to 25 millirem per year. In addition to that, for liquid discharges, we establish a more restrictive threshold of less than 0.6 millirem per month, 1.5 millirem per quarter, and less than 3 millirem per year for any liquid discharges. So the radiological impact that's associated with releases. So in the last year that we performed a liquid effluent release, which was 2015, there were 7 liquid effluent releases totaling over 112,000 gallons of water. This resulted in a radiological exposure of 6.7 100,000ths of a millirem to a maximum exposed hypothetical member of the public. This would be an individual that was swimming in the water, was ingesting or digesting shellfish through eating in the water. And if all of the water were, all the remaining 831,375 gallons were discharged in a calendar year, that would increase from 6.7 100,000ths to just 5/10 thousandths of 1 millirem to the most limiting hypothetical individual. For gaseous releases from 2024, evaporation and work activities resulted in the release of radioactive particles and tritium. This resulted in a whole body radiological exposure of 4.710 1,000ths of 1 millirem. And I selected 2024 for this comparison because this was the season where we had performed both a winter, spring, and fall winter heating. So this would be the worst considered radiological impact associated with heating water and natural evaporation going forward. And again, when we look at these ultra small numbers in 10 1,000ths of a millirem, for perspective, radiological exposure of 10 millirem is received for a chest x-ray, and the average individual receives 620 millirem from natural and man-made sources. And that's a presentation. If you have any questions?
All right, thank you, Mr. Noyes. Do we have questions from?
Of course.
Okay, Mr. Lampert?
Dave, in addition to what you put up here, I spent some time seeing what we had in prior reports that kind of showed the systems for filtering.
Mm-hmm.
The two I came up with were what you attached, or what HDI attached to its application for a modified permit. And also, there was a presentation that you made to NDCAP back, I think it was in January of 2024, that shows spent fuel pool filtration.
Mm-hmm.
If I understand those correctly, and let's start with what was submitted to DEP in your application, The water that will eventually go out of what I think you then called outlet 15, and probably still do, came from the Taurus, into which the spent fuel pool and the DSP had already, water for those had already flowed. Is it correct that the discharge is from the Taurus and not directly from the spent fuel pool?
It could be from either one, but right now, the flow path would be from either the Taurus or the spent fuel pool through the rad min to a treated water tank, and then that treated water tank is sampled prior to discharge.
Okay, and then basically, from either of those, if I understand it correctly, it flows through both a demineralizer and also a filter. Am I right so far?
You are.
What do each of those take out?
What do each of those what?
What do each of those remove from the water flow?
So the filter removes particulate, even fine particulate. So a 2-micron filter for the Taurus is just for perspective, 2 micron is the size of the opening. Yep. So a human hair is about 70 microns. So like 1/35th the thickness of a human hair. That's the particle that would be expected to be removed by that filtration system.
And is that both radiological and non-radiological particles?
Yes. Yeah, it doesn't have an affinity for anything. It's just particles. And then the demineralizer has both anion and cation resins. So any impurities that either have a positive or a negative charge are the specific resin has an affinity for removal of those, and they give off a either a benign positive or negative ion in the exchange.
Could you give an example of what types of impurities that you're talking about there?
So it would be things like boron, calcium, chlorine, I think those are the major ones.
Any radiological?
Yeah, to the extent that the radiologicals have an ionic charge,
okay.
They would be removed. Predominantly, even the resins also have a filtering capability. So if it is in the form of a particulate, they'll remove it as well.
And on this path, after the flow has gone through the filter and the demineralization, if I understand it correctly, it goes in to a treated water storage tank, and it then goes to the outfall, and somewhere between the outfall and the discharge canal, it's diluted, am I right?
Yes, that's correct.
The other loop I found in what we went through was in your January 24, and it appears to show a filtration loop that starts in the spent fuel pool and goes then back into the spent fuel pool. Is there such a loop?
Yeah, there are actually two of them. The Avantex system that we were using in the cavity and dryer separator pit has been repurposed to take water from the spent fuel pool, run it through a 5-micron filter, and discharge it back into the spent fuel pool. We also continue to use, as needed, the spent fuel pool filtering and demineralization system.
So there are both, in this loop, there is both a filter and a demineralizer?
That's correct.
Is there a similar loop in the Taurus where most of the water is now?
There is a filtration loop, so it recirculates through a filter with a 2-micron edge size, and there is not a demineralizer in that Taurus loop currently, but prior to the discharge of that water from the Taurus, it would be treated through the rad min prior to going to a treated water tank for discharge.
And that would include a demineralizer in that. That flow path.
Yep.
Okay. I then got in your slide 5, if you could go back to it. This is where I got a little confused. My understanding was that if we're in the refueling, the refueling floor, the area that gets heated, am I right? Do I have the two things correct?
You do, yeah. Now it would only be the spent fuel pool because there's no water in the cavity or dryer separator bit, but still on the refuel floor.
My understanding had been that the evaporation from the spent fuel pool, both natural and any increase that might be due to the heating, went out a vent in the side of the building.
Yes.
And in that flow path, there was, and I assume still is, a system that can monitor the radiological particulates.
Yes, that's
And
correct.
also something that can sample for tritium.
That's correct.
Is there anything else in that flow path?
No, there's not.
So there is no demineralizer. If it's evaporated water, it doesn't see a demineralizer, am I right?
It does because the source water itself is demineralized.
But
so
not at, but from the time it leaves the spent fuel pool, it does not see it.
That's correct.
And it also doesn't see a filter from the time it leaves the spent fuel pool.
That's correct. It sees both of those while it's in the pool. Yeah.
Water now in the Taurus. I believe you said, I can't remember which meeting, that there were 4 vents out of the Taurus and that they are typically open?
There are 2 manway covers.
2 manway,
that are open.
the numbers
Yeah.
wrong. To what do those communicate?
They communicate to the reactor building atmosphere. So any evaporation that happens from the torus is released via that same reactor building vent that sees the water that is released from the refuel flow.
Now, and is this the slide that I asked you to put up, is this the reactor building? Or what, I'm not clear what we're talking about right here.
So this is the standalone Avantech system that was initially installed for reactor vessel segmentation. Okay. So this is an installed 5-micron filter that takes suction from where we either package waste or create waste. It sends that water through a 5-micron filter and discharges back to the volume in which it came out of. This is the filter element that was exchanged 13 times because of the material that was removed during segmentation.
And is this evaporated water or liquid water?
This is liquid water.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Other questions from panel members? Ms. Dubois?
We've talked about segmenting a lot, but I don't know how we're segmenting. Are we taking things apart? Are we cutting them? They have some nice laser things you can just fire at.
Both. We've used both.
So when you're filtering it, you're filtering some of the metals that are part of the cutting?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
And any sort of debris that might have been attached to the stuff itself. And those filters then can trap.
Can you speak closer to your microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thanks. Those filters can trap the all that debris. I'll call it debris.
Yes.
And then when those get clogged, you replace them.
That's correct.
And you ship them to the waste disposal
Facility in Andrews, Texas.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So the 13, can you give me a sense of the size of these filters? Are they as big as you?
Oh, a lot bigger than me.
That's what I thought.
This
So as big as, I just trying to get an understanding what the filtration unit thing is like, because when you said 13, I was like, well, that ain't very much, but then it depends on the
They're
size.
on the order of about 16 feet high and maybe 10 feet in diameter.
And when you talk about resins,
Yes.
those are, what kind of resins are we talking about? We're not talking about pine sap.
No, they're beads. They're essentially inorganic beads that are then created with both positive and negative ions attached to them. The negative ion, for instance, is the negative ion is like a hydroxyl ion. So it's an OH, it's essentially water. So it can remove another negative impurity and give up that hydroxyl ion to the water.
So that stuff sticks to that?
Yes,
Well-
yeah, it does.
And it doesn't let it go, and it can build up on that, and so when it gets clogged, I'm gonna call it?
Yes, yeah, so we monitor that a little bit differently. We look for a thing called breakthrough. So we monitor the concentration of the ion that we're trying to remove at the outlet of the demineralizer. And as we start to see that concentration begin to rise, we know that we've used those demineralization sites, and it's time to change out that resin.
Have you developed any new methods when you're doing all this nice work?
The two filtration systems, the Avantec system we're using in the Taurus and the one on the refuel floor, are both new to us. In the past, we'd use these tri-nuke filters that in some cases had a 25 micron capability or a 10 micron capability. A 10 micron capability is like what somebody would use to filter their swimming pool.
Right.
So 2 micron is
Much
5
better.
times finer.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks very much. I need to learn more.
So Dave,
Mr.
the old days,
O'Brien?
you used to have the condiments for the resins.
I'm sorry?
The old days, you used to have the condiment system for the resins that we used to filter out, right?
Yes.
Then you had, in order to replace the resin with new resin, we used to have the URC system. You don't utilize that?
We don't utilize that anymore. The primary purpose for the condensate demineralizers was seawater
Yeah.
and preventing seawater from making it to the reactor. So the condensate demineralizers are no longer used. We've removed that resin.
You did, okay.
Other questions from, yes, Mr. Little?
If you were to ship this waste off to Texas now, the liquid waste or the water, does it meet the criteria for shipment today, or would it need to be purified before it goes to Texas?
No, it could be shipped as it is right now. When it gets to Texas, they would solidify it. They'd mix it with a 3-to-1 clay mixture, and then they would bury it.
Other questions from, yes, Mrs. Lampert?
Yes, and talk about fine micron particle filtration. One has 5 micron, another one has 2.
Yes.
Your mic is
Yes, I was wondering about micron particle filtration. Which one has 5 and which one has 2?
The one that is used on the refuel floor has a 5 micron capability. Because of the types of activities that were being performed on the refuel floor, 5 micron was the appropriate for those work activities. Because of the material in the Taurus was essentially stagnant, we could use a finer filter. We could use 2 micron.
Well, what radionuclides could slip through?
I mean, it depends on the size of the individual radionuclide. A filter is only going to remove particulate. It's not going to remove anything that's gaseous, and it's not going to remove anything that is attached to a piece of metal that's less than the micron size.
Okay.
But the numbers that are in the treated water tank, the discharge limit from 2015, is inclusive of anything that has slipped through that process in the past.
Other questions, Mrs. Lampert?
No, I'm just
Okay.
thinking about it.
Dr. Potvin?
Just wondering, Dave, after something passes through the particulate filter and then the deionizer filters that you use, I assume tritium would go right through those.
It will.
Are there any other radionuclides that would likely pass through that filtration process?
I don't know of any. I know that we've tailored the resin mix in the Raddamin to maintain radiological discharges ALARA, so I don't know of anything other than tritium that would, in and of itself, pass through filtration and demineralization.
Yeah, I'm wondering specifically about iodine.
I'm not sure. I'm going to have to check.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from panel members? Mr. Gottlieb?
Yes. So Dave, Holtec currently lacks legal authority to utilize this filtration system to discharge Cape Cod Bay, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So this is really just an academic explanation or a nostalgic walk down memory lane of what used to be when you were generating power, how you would filter, right?
It was directly answer the question of what means are used to filter and treat the water, both in the past and currently.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Other questions from panel members? All right, seeing none, thank you, Mr. Noyes. That brings us into, well, first, Mr. Priest did provide an answer to who the chair of the IWG is, and I misunderstood I thought he was saying Paul O, but it's Paulo DeFabio, who is also our staff support. So, my mistake, but his official title is Deputy Chief of Staff, Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So he is the chair of the IWG. All right, so that brings us into the next item on our agenda, that being the approval of previous meeting minutes. We have been provided a copy of the proposed meeting minutes of May 19th. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes? Does anyone have anything they would like to add, edit, alter, or otherwise change in regards to the proposed meeting minutes of that meeting? Yes?
I do. I have a couple. I went through our last meeting minutes, and most of it's just making some spelling corrections, but on page 2, the waterfall swim lanes, the chart, third bullet, first line, replace for the fuel casks in the grader with for the fuel casks and grader. In the should be changed to and. And then I would suggest you do a global search on the entire meetings. They were talking about TSCA, which is really TSCA. So instead of TOSCA, it's TSCA, toxic. God, I can't think what the acronym is. I should know it. Then my name was misspelled.
Toxic Substance Control Act.
Thank you. Then page 6, second bullet down, 6th line, they misspelled my name, so just corrected, it only has one L. And Mr. Gottlieb, I have a question for you on page 7, 19th line. It says clarifying the following statement by Mr. Gottlieb. So they are noble with certainty in one scenario, but utterly and completely. I think you meant known and not noble. Makes more sense if you take a look at it.
I'll take a look at it, Mary.
Okay.
Thank you.
Page 7, first bullet, 5th line, to keep the people from being impacted, change it to keep the material from being impacted instead of people. Page 10, it's page 7, first bullet, 5th line.
First bullet, the full bullet one starting with your name.
Hold on a second, let me look. It's the sentence that starts, and when you are heating the water in the spent fuel pool. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. Then page 10, 5th bullet,
What was the suggested change?
from people to material.
But it's creature comfort.
It's creature comfort, but you're keeping them, it's to keep the material inside the plant, the equipment and material from freezing.
I think people is correct there, as I'm reading that sentence. It says basically you're keeping the creature comfort of the people working up on the refuel pool. I think that's referring to the people and not the
Oh, no,
materials.
that's the first one. If you continue that sentence reading, creature comfort of the people working up on the refuel port and the rest of the building to keep material from being impacted by cooler. There's 2 people in that line.
I guess I would disagree with that change.
Whatever, doesn't matter, you keep it or toss it, doesn't matter to me. Page 10, fifth bullet, fourth line, you got into as two separate words. It should be into, one word. Page 26, first bullet, third line, replace years, multiple with years possessive. And page 27, second bullet, 14th line, replace items, plural, with items, singular.
Could you repeat page 26 when I was just turning the pages?
Page 26 is replace years. It's the first bullet, third line, replace years, multiple with years possessive. And page 22nd, second bullet, 14th line, is replace items, multiple with just items, singular.
Mr. Chair,
Anything further, Ms. Ganslick?
Nope, that's it.
Okay, Mr. Gottlieb?
good catch by Ms. Gatzlick, that she's correct on page 7. The word would have been knowable, not noble.
Okay, thank you. Any other proposed edits, alterations, or changes?
I just had one typo on page 9. I think we were talking about John Drabinski, not Grabinski,
Okay, we can make that change. Thank you.
for ERM.
Any other edits, additions, changes, or alterations? All right.
The other thing I was wondering if we could do is, on that Tosca thing, is add a footnote that just explains what it is, because it has everything to do with an EPA rule.
A footnote that describes the initialism?
Yeah, I think I sent that to you, on page 22.
Okay, okay. Any other additions, edits, changes, alterations, revisions, comments, thoughts, queries, questions? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the proposed meeting minutes with those edits that have been listed and discussed?
So moved.
Has been moved by Mr. Lampert. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
It has been seconded by Ms. Ganslick. Any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Noyes?
Approved.
Mr. McDonough?
Approve.
Mr. O'Brien?
Approve.
Ms. Dubois?
Approve.
Mr. Fortini?
Approved.
Ms. Ganslick?
Approved.
Mr. Lampert? Mrs. Lampert?
Approved.
Mr. Priest?
Approved.
Mr. Bryant?
Approved.
Mr. Wade?
Approve.
Mr. Callahan?
Approve.
Mr. Gottlieb?
Yeah, approved.
Dr. Potvin?
Approve.
Myself, I will vote yes, and Mr. Little.
I wasn't a member of the committee.
Would you care to abstain?
Abstain.
Okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have 15 affirmative, 0 negative, and 1 abstention.
I agree.
Okay, so the motion does carry. We have approved the proposed meeting minutes of May 19th. That brings us into the next subject on our agenda, that being public questions and comment. So, we will now move on to the public questions and comment section of the meeting. The panel has allotted 30 minutes on our agenda for the purpose of public questions and comments. During this section of our agenda, any member of the public may make a statement or ask questions of members of the panel. Each speaker during this segment will be given up to 5 minutes to make their statement or ask questions. This speaking time will include both the statements of the speaker and the time panel members spend answering any questions that are posed to them. If a speaker exceeds their 5 minutes of speaking time and wishes to speak for additional time, they will be offered up to 1 additional minute to finish speaking, or if they want more than an additional minute, they can ask the panel for their desired amount of time, but speakers are reminded that pursuant to our enabling statute, such a request will require a majority vote of the entire membership of the panel in order to succeed. Once 30 minutes have elapsed, the panel will not invite further speakers to speak. However, any speaker that has already started speaking prior to the 30-minute mark will be given the same speaking time and opportunities afforded to prior speakers to make their statements or get answers to their questions. With that in mind, do we have any members of the public in physical attendance that wish to speak? Yes, Diane? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Diane Turkle with Cape Town Winters. As part of citizens' responsibilities to be advocates for public and environmental health and safety, and that one of the tasks of this panel is to encourage community involvement, we are submitting the following request to the NDCAP to act on our behalf. After receiving a whistleblower letter regarding radiological exposure by workers at Holtec Pilgrim, Cape Town Winters wrote to Governor Healy requesting the state to initiate an independent investigation regarding allegations of worker and public health and safety from Holtec's new practice of evaporating the radioactive wastewater under the guise of providing a warm environment for the workers. No action was taken. A written request to the NDCAP asking for action to advise the governor to investigate the allegations was submitted in September of 2023. It was not taken up by the panel until March of 2024, when it then was tabled. Votes to table included DPH and DPA representatives who usually abstain from most votes on the panel. Cape Town Winters then sent a letter to DPH on 6/25/24 requesting an investigation as a formal complaint. However, Mass DEP replied that they didn't have the license, they didn't license Pilgrim, so they had no authority. The Mass DPH recommendation was to, quote, share your specific concerns directly to the NDCAP. So here we are. We are now asking for the NDCAP to advise Governor Healy to initiate an independent investigation into the serious allegations as described in the attached letter dated August 18, 2023, sent to Cape Town Winters and Mass DEP Jack Priest anonymously. These allegations are related to, quote, forced evaporation of radiologically contaminated wastewater to work in public health safety due to exposure to tritium in the air vapors, release of airborne radionuclides into the environment, discharged up the stack, unquote. Holtec's own plant radiation protection personnel were, quote, very critical of the proposed design and implementation, unquote, concluding that, quote, this process presents a radiological and industrial safety concern to the refuel for a workforce, unquote. In addition, quote, the radiation exposure to the general public from releasing tritium in the form of water vapor discharged up the stack would be many times greater than the radiation exposure that would be received by the general public had the tritium-contaminated water been discharged into Cape Cod Bay, unquote. We understand there is no safe dose of radionuclides that does not cause harm, so we also asked for the plant radiation protection report from Holtec, but they refused to release it. Number two, we remain concerned about the adequate security at the Holtec Pilgrim ISFSI, particularly given the recent national announcement of a terrorism alert after the U.S. bombed Iran. Cape Town Winters has been asking for the current easy physical access to the dry cast to be reviewed and improved upon. Yet even after Dr. Gordon Thompson presented to the NDCAP the real risks inherent in the current storage of the high-level nuclear waste within line of sight of Rocky Hill Road, also, and multiple public reports of easy access on the driveway leading right to the casts, that area remains easily vulnerable. And I gave you a picture, and where that blue dot is, you can drive a vehicle up there without being stopped. An attack could result in a radiological contamination surrounding areas including Boston. This is a serious situation that should not be ignored. I recently contacted MEMA, who directed me to the NRC to address these concerns, which were dismissed as regulations are already in place. Attached are the NRC correspondences, which I will give you. However, I did ask if the NRC could issue its own order to increase security at Pilgrim, and the answer was yes. So we are requesting the NDCAP to address this serious public safety matter by requesting Governor Maura Healey order a review by MEMA and include Plymouth emergency responders and watchdog advocates regarding the current inadequate security situation, and provide a plan with robust and protective security measures in place, such as a locked road gates that cannot be penetrated, visual blockage of the cans and the vents that are now clearly visible from the road and the driveway, and identify other security issues that allow vehicles or bad actors to approach and/or park within the range of easy access to the cans and the vents. The results will be included in a request to the NRC to order an increased improvement of security at Holtec Pilgrim. And number three, We asked NDCAP to advise the governor to respond to the spring ballot public advisory question, calling on our elected officials to enforce state laws to prohibit Holtec's illegal evaporation of the radioactive industrial wastewater. This spring, 17 Cape Cod and South Shore towns voted on a non-binding public advisory initiative calling on Governor Maura Healey, Attorney General Andrea Campbell, along with state and elected officials to enforce our state laws to ensure that Holtec immediately cease their gaseous airborne discharge of radioactive and chemically contaminated industrial wastewater into our communities and the environment. The recent election results overwhelmingly supporting this initiative highlight the significant community concern regarding environmental responsibility, with nearly 90% of the voters voting for the cessation of Holtec's radioactive wastewater airborne discharge.
Diane, you have exceeded 5 minutes.
Oh, I have?
Do you want an additional
shoot.
minute to conclude
Yes.
your remarks? Okay.
Yes, I'm almost done. Okay. There are other, anyways, I'm really surprised that it was brought to the attention that Holtec is still planning to dump into the bay. As seen from the environmental justice issue, nobody should be exposed to radionuclides, and that includes the people of Plymouth or any place else. Holtec could store that radioactive wastewater safely with the dry casts, but they're choosing to instead attempt to contaminate Plymouth in the area. And the public is not acceptable collateral damage to the profits of Holtec. The host town, Plymouth, voted in favor of this action to stop the evaporation, 7,034 to 656, overwhelmingly. That's what the people want, but Holtec is refusing to acknowledge that. So we ask that the NDCAP, on our behalf, advise the governor to make a statement of action regarding the public petition requesting implementation of state measures to prohibit the illegal evaporation of Holtec Pilgrim's industrial radioactive wastewater.
You have exceeded your additional minute.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And I will send you a written statement. I had to do some corrections and all the documents.
There's a
And,
comment form on the website that you can submit the materials that you're looking.
Okay, well,
We'll go in the official.
you'll get it?
It goes, yes, it goes
Okay, and I
to the
just wanted to
chair and
make
vice
sure-
chair, and it goes to the staff.
This is
support.
where a vehicle could drive up.
I understand.
the
You've
blue dot.
exceeded your,
Okay,
you've
thank you.
exceeded your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Hi, I'm
Please,
Rosemary Shields with the League of Women Voters. And I just need this clarified, and it was something that Ms. Lampert talked about, but that Holtec took out 360,000 gallons from the Taurus, and it's now in the spent fuel pool, right? And
No, that's not correct. It's
All right.
from the dryer separator pit and reactor cavity, and it's now in the Taurus.
Oh, it's now in the Taurus, okay, opposite. And that you took samples of hard-to-detect, problematic radioactive nuclides and solid waste, and you offered it to the Department of Public Health, and I just wanted to know why the Department of Public Health refused to take the samples.
We've had multiple samples that we've taken, and we've seen no change in concentrations of those radionuclides. And since this was not additional activity that's going to be released, we didn't feel we needed to have an additional sample at this time. If things change, concentrations change, they change their filtration system, we are available to take additional split samples with Holtec.
Okay. And so that's what you decided, even though that they were saying that they had, because I remember when we did the split samples and you just took them from the top, you didn't go all the way down, you didn't do the mixing.
We've been back subsequent, so our initial samples that we
Okay.
took, there was some concerns about stratification,
Right.
meaning where did we take it in the tank? We had a discussion about that with the DEP and the profile. We went back and we resampled. We split those samples with Holtec. We have samples from DEP. This was an additional set of samples as they've moved the water from one location to another.
Right, so you think that maybe with the movement of the water, you might get some other additional information from those?
By the time that settles in the Taurus, we'll have another opportunity to do additional sampling. That isn't the last set of samples that we're going to take.
Okay, and so once it's settled, you will go down deep and get it?
Yep, so as part of what they're doing for characterization.
Jack, is your mic closer to you, please?
Yep, sure. So yes, there'll be additional opportunities for us to go out and sample with the DEP and with DPH. Holtec has made that sampling available to us whenever we ask for it. So that will not be the last and only opportunity for us to go in and do those samples.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you
welcome.
so much.
All right, thank you. Brings us to our next speaker. Please identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Luttrey. I'm a student of chemistry at Bridgewater State University. I'm here today to present testimony regarding the ongoing concerns that everyone on the panel and everyone in the community and abroad has had over the wastewater issue, specifically concerning the hydrogen isotope of tritium. I believe that it is imperative that in addressing this issue that's been affecting the panel and affecting the community for the last couple of years, that there should be a thorough and equitable process that hears all sides of the argument, both the industrial side, the environmental side, political side, what have you not. And through such dialogue, we can arrive at situations and solutions that can prioritize the public health as well as the environmental integrity of our home region. And the other thing I wanted to bring up also with the small modular reactors that have been proposed by Holtec, I think they should consider going forward with it possibly in the near future after everything has settled down, as it can help possibly resolve some of the energy questions that are arising across the country. Obviously, there is a ban that's been in place for 40 years as a result of 3 Mile Island, and Governor Healy has expressed some interest in possibly repealing that ban, which can help reignite the question of expanding possibly with nuclear power or possibly looking at alternatives that can help the energy issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please take the microphone and introduce yourself.
I'll be quick. My name is Peter Moyer. I've actually been here before, and I've spoken on the same issue. I'm talking tonight particularly about the evaporation of radioactive nuclear spent fuel pool water. And my question is to you, Dave. I asked the same question last time, and you gave me kind of a vague answer, which was, have we measured, or I think the NRC does measure, at least biannually, what comes out, what radioisotopes come out of the stack? And I think last time you said not much, but you weren't very specific as to what did. Do you know by now what does come out of it? And I was talking, because I listened to your talk about the resins and the charcoal, and I got the sense that the only thing that really comes out is an ionic isotope. I don't really even know which isotopes are ionic. I don't know if cesium is. I don't know if cobalt is, the ones that we've seen in the water. But if they're not ionic, I think we're misdirecting the public by saying we're cleaning the water. We're really not cleaning the water of any of the isotopes. We're doing it of particulate matter. But can you name the isotopes that are coming out of the stack, particularly when we evaporate?
Yeah, there are small amounts of cesium that are released through the gaseous effluent flow path. The reports that are on the NRC webpage, the annual reports, provide a breakdown of all of the individual isotopes that have been measured in the gaseous release flow path. And I can show you how to get to that report if you'd like to see it. Cesium, I know we have seen in some of the samples. I'm not sure about others.
Okay. Other members of the public in physical attendance that wish to give public comment or ask questions? All right, we have a virtual hand. I think it's Brian Campbell, if I'm reading that correctly.
That is correct.
Mr. Campbell, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you have the floor. Mr. Campbell, if you can unmute yourself, you're not currently unmuted. That's okay. Well, while we await Mr. Campbell, is anyone else in physical attendance that wishes to take the podium? All right, seeing none, we will continue our vigilance for Mr. Campbell.
His hand is down.
His hand is down. All right. Mr. Campbell has decided not to comment. One last call.
Mr. Lynch.
Oh, okay, we have a
Mr. Lynch.
William Lynch. If you'd like to unmute yourself, you have the floor. And if Mr. Campbell reconsiders during this, we could circle back. If not, we will move forward. Mr. Lynch, if you'd like to unmute yourself. Currently muted. We look forward to you being unmuted. All right, we can see you, Mr. Lynch.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you now, though you're soft. So if you could get close to your microphone, that would be helpful.
The microphone is attached on my headset.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Just a few comments. I believe cesium would be ionic, so the resins should remove it. And also the tritium, if I understand properly, is approximately 1 milligram in the total volume on the order of 1 million gallons. That's a pretty small amount, less than a typical tritium-containing exit sign. So if one of those were to accidentally break in an accident or a fire, it would probably release more. Seems like a small amount, at least in those two. I'm not totally understand all the other materials that could be present. But and I have also heard that with NRC oversight, this type of spent fuel pool water has been released. I believe I read something from Indian Point, and possibly also San Onofre may have been allowed to. So it seems like it's not completely unusual to release it, and it just seems like the amount couldn't be very big in the tritium being vented. I don't know the regulations on the amounts of all these other materials and whether they can be released. But the amount of tritium just seems to be so small, and I only have limited understanding.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Mr. Campbell, Mr. Campbell is, his hand is up. If you want to unmute yourself, Mr. Campbell, we welcome your comments at this time.
Okay, I finally got the sign that said I could unmute before I couldn't unmute. My name is Brian Campbell, a retired electrical engineer, and I strongly support discharging treated water from Pilgrim Nuclear Station into Cape Cod Bay. I've reported after dilution, 80 gallons of discharged water would equal the radiation dose received from eating a banana. The presentations by Holtec to this panel shows Holtec to be a good corporate citizen performing the Pilgrim decommissioning in a truthful and open manner that should be commended. And I thought David Noyes' presentation tonight was excellent. And it just shows that there's radiation dangers that have got the public so upset are minimal, are pretty much harmless. A 2022 article from Power magazine by Paul Miller, Accelerated Decommissioning of Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station, a progress report, reports the social value in accelerated decommissioning will benefit the town of Plymouth by enabling the bulk of the 1,600-acre property to be repurposed, helping to replace tax revenues lost when the plant shut down. The article reports a 2027 return of these 1,600 acres to the town of Plymouth for development. That's not going to be met. This would have somewhat compensated Plymouth for losing 600 high-paying jobs whose annual payroll was approximately $77 million, including benefits. This translated into $9.8 million in state and local taxes annually, and was approximately 10% of Plymouth's total tax revenue. The Commonwealth and this panel have done everything possible to sabotage accelerated decommissioning by delaying discharge of treated, safe water into Cape Cod Bay, which has been done since 1972 with no harm to anything. The way the Commonwealth works is this. Undersecretary of Climate Change, David Ismay, saying 60% of the state emissions come from you, the person in the street, the senior on a fixed income. There is no bad guy left, at least in Massachusetts, to point the finger at, to turn the screws on, to break their will to stop emitting. That's you. We have to break your will, right? I can't say that publicly, but he did. That's right. You're fired, David. That's how the Commonwealth deals with truth tellers. The Commonwealth, by unplugging Industrial Cathedral, Pilgrim Nuclear, shows it is run by industrial-scale vandals, intent on impoverishing Massachusetts tax and ratepayers. The 2050 net zero plans, with the corrupt mass save and the adoption of wind, solar, and battery, is creating an unreliable, expensive, woke electrical grid that is a disaster. As we destroy our forests, farmland, and open space to accommodate this corrupt green grift build-out. Solutions: stop whale killing offshore wind, increase gas line pipeline infrastructure to the Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania, build combined cycle gas and nuclear power electrical generation, and change Chelsea, Massachusetts gas infrastructure from an import facility to an export facility to supply our vital European allies with LNG, natural gas, not Russian gas, which New England used to import through this facility. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public, either in physical or virtual attendance, wish to give public comment or ask questions at this time? Is that a different hand? Richard something?
Richard Rothstein.
Richard Rothstein, if you'd like to unmute yourself, we welcome your comment and or questions at this time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Very good. I was talking earlier today with Pine, administrator, a question about the handicap membership roster. I wasn't sure I'd be able to unmute myself because I had some problems with my computer in past months, but Pine, I think you got back to you that Mary Gatzlick was going to bring up my concern with the chair.
She was going to ask your question, but you go right ahead.
Okay. Kevin, I guess right now there is no Nuclear Matters Committee official member sitting on the NDCAP, despite what was shown when I was on the NDCAP website earlier today. I think the new member from the town of Plymouth who was appointed was incorrect and showed as being the Nuclear Matters Committee representative when he's a town of Plymouth representative. So that being the case, a little quick history. I was a former chair of the Nuclear Matters Committee when it existed. I stepped down around 2018 or 16. I joined the NDCAP in 2018 and then as an NMC member also, and I stepped down in 2021. John Mahoney became the NMC member at the time, and then of course he stepped down. So right now there's a hole in the wall, as they say, and my understanding is that the NMC is defunct. It never was officially shut down, but they could not, the town Board of Selectmen could not get a quorum of people at the time. They weren't appointing any new members, so without a quorum, you couldn't have meetings. And then when the NMC wasn't meeting, the former Select Board Chair, Ken Taveras, formed the Energy Working Group to discuss a number of things that were kind of similar to what the NMC was doing. Of course, that disappeared when the NDCAP was also, when the NDCAP was formed. So right now, and the point of order earlier, there was a discussion about being able to get enough people to vote and filling all the slots there. So you have an opening here, and with Plymouth being the host community for the Pilgrim plant being decommissioned there, I think it would behoove, I'm talking with Pine, that something has to change at the legislative level when the NDCAP was formed to either give Plymouth a third member appointed by the board, or you know, just something has to give there to keep that third person slot for the town of Plymouth.
So I can answer that question. So aspects of that history are correct. The town did have a nuclear matters committee for a number of years, but my understanding is that in 2017 or 18, it became essentially a non-functional committee due to a lack of a quorum for a prolonged period of time. And it partly because the operations of that committee, a town committee, predated the existence of this committee, the state committee. When the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel, this committee, was formed, this committee was given a seat that is appointed by the select board that is designated for someone that is on the Nuclear Matters Committee. But because the select board was unable to staff the Nuclear Matters Committee for a prolonged period of time, it made it difficult to fill that slot. So what the select board did as part of our annual appointment process was to appoint someone to the Nuclear Matters Committee with the sole purpose of them filling the slot here, because the Nuclear Matters Committee no longer serves any purpose in the town of Plymouth, was not able to maintain a quorum for a prolonged period of time. But we as a town cannot change the composition of the NDCAP and our appointment structure. That would require state legislation. However, there is no minimum requirement as to how many members exist on the Nuclear Matters Committee. So, long story short, it is correct that the member that was recently appointed and is in attendance is a member of the Nuclear Matters Committee, and his only responsibility on the Nuclear Matters Committee, as it currently is constituted, is to fill a seat on the Nuclear Decommissioning Citizens Advisory Panel for the town of Plymouth. The town will advertise the remaining seat for the NDCAP that is also appointed by the select board. We have to live within this infrastructure because that is what the state statute was constituted as, and changing that would require an act of the legislature, which is beyond Plymouth's ability to control.
So if I understand, Kevin, that at some point the town will try to appoint a new person to serve in that Nuclear Matters Committee role for a committee that doesn't exist anymore on paper, if I understood what you're saying.
That is what we already did.
I thought the new appointee who's here tonight was appointed by the town of Plymouth to fill him.
The select board appointed the Nuclear Matters Committee. So we appointed an individual to the Nuclear Matters Committee, a committee of one, whose job is to be on this committee.
Okay. I
Okay.
stand corrected then.
It is correct. All right, so that, we have 1 minute left in public comment. Anyone else wish to give public comment? Hearing and seeing none, we will move forward. That brings us into the next item on our agenda, that being a discussion on proposals from panel members regarding adding items to future agendas. Does any member of the panel have any items that they would like to discuss the possibility of adding to future agendas? I will remind members of the panel that it requires an affirmative vote of a majority of the entire membership, whether appointed or not, to place an item on a future agenda. But with that in mind,
I have one.
yes, Ms. Gatzlick.
I have one that I know is going to interest the panel. It's the Public Bill, Public Law 188-272, Fiscal Year 2024 Energy and Water Development and Related Agencies Appropriation Act. It was passed into law in January of this year. The nice part about this is it actually has a section devoted to what they call nuclear host communities, such as Plymouth. And within that whole bill, there's an opportunity for us to write a letter to the DOE to request funding to be able to bring expert panel people to talk to us and to talk to the public about decommissioning, about its impact to the host communities. I know that it's been a bone of contention or a sore spot in this committee saying that there's absolutely no funding to bring speakers in. This allows us to do it. And I'd like the committee to consider exploring this further and get that letter generated so that we could potentially get some funding. Whether or not that money is still there after this current administration, who knows? But it is law, and there is a process to go about to request the money for the panel. And I want, like I said, I would like the committee or the panel to consider it as an additional agenda item. I can send the information I have out around to the panel members if that's all right with you, Chair.
Yes.
Okay, I will.
May I ask one question?
You
Certainly.
may, Mr. Lambert.
Who would be funding this?
This comes out of the DOE.
So basically, this would be federal underfunding, it's not state money, is that what
It's
you're saying?
federal money.
Right. Other questions about the, Mr. Gottlieb?
Not about this, I have a separate
Oh,
topic to
okay.
suggest when Mary's done.
Okay. Any questions on this item? So we have, historically, when a new proposal has been put out, the state agency representatives have wanted to wait until a future,
We can vote on that tonight.
you can vote on this one tonight.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, that's heartening. So, we have a proposal by Ms. Gatzlick. And is that a motion to add this?
It's a motion to add this.
Okay. You may ask a question.
My question is, are there any strings attached?
That's
Any
the-
restrictions on what the topics can be, who the speakers can be? Is it just a blank check?
That's the beauty of it, Mrs. Lambert. There are no strings attached. But I would suggest that the panel, as a group, decide which speakers are coming, just so that we make sure that we get our bang for our proverbial federal buck.
Well, the requirement of adding an item to the agenda requiring majority vote would still exist.
Yeah.
So, yes, at a minimum, a majority of the panel membership would need to be in agreement to add an item and seek a particular speaker.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions before I solicit a second to the motion? All right, so Ms. Gatzlick has moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Fortini has seconded. Do we have any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing and
I just wanted to
Ms.
say that
Dubois?
I
Yep.
took a broad look at it quickly, and it looks like there's a lot of opportunity there, and we would be crazy not to take advantage of it.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. If there's none, I will call for the vote. Mr. Noyes?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Dubois?
Yes.
Mr. Fortini,
Yes.
Ms. Gatzlick,
Yes.
Mr. Lampert,
Yes.
Mrs. Lampert,
Yes.
Mr. Priest,
Yes.
Mr. Bryant.
Yes.
Mr.,
Mr. Bryant was a yes. Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Dr. Potvin,
Yes.
myself, yes, and Mr. Little?
Yes.
All right. So it is unanimous. 16-0 with no abstentions. So we will add that to a future agenda. One and done. All right. Mr. Gottlieb?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to suggest that we have a briefing on the potential impact and structure of the IPO for Holtec. I think there's more here to be discussed than we're able to do just in a question and answer forum. I think it's worthy of our time and attention.
I can't really hear you, Mr. Gottlieb.
I'm sorry.
Could you like clear?
What I was saying is I would like to have the committee have an informed, brief discussion on the IPO and its potential impact on our activities. I think it warrants a more full and robust conversation than we're able to have just in a question and answer period.
All right. So the idea is for a more formal presentation and Q&A aspect for the effect of the IPO on the operations of Holtec's decommissioning efforts in relation to the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. Mr. Lampert?
Just a question as to, before voting or thinking about it either way, as to when this discussion might profitably take place. If there's going to be an IPO, corporate practice is not where I was, and my understanding is there will necessarily be quite complete and voluminous SEC filings, et cetera. And until those have been put together, I think would be premature to get into the subject. We aren't really going to know what the structure proposed is until all the SEC filings that'll put this out in excruciating detail are around.
Okay. Any other thoughts on Mr. Gottlieb's proposal?
I agree with Mr. Lampert.
Okay. Any other thoughts? All right. Is that a motion, Mr. Gottlieb?
It is.
All right. Mr. Gottlieb has moved. Do we have a second? If there is no second.
Second.
All right. Mr. Priest has seconded. All right. Any discussion about whether or not we should add the effect of the IPO on Holtec's corporate structure and decommissioning efforts in Plymouth to a future agenda? Mr. Noyes.
I agree that the discussion would be premature without even knowing what the schedule of the IPO is.
Okay. Other discussion? Ms. Dubois.
I think that it's more urgent and productive to talk about what we're going to do with the spent fuel on the Hill, and that we have a lot of work to do in that regard, and would be silly to waste our time with that.
Thank you. Mr. Priest.
Would it be possible if we add that to when Holtec does their meeting update, that they could include, are there any updates on the IPO status? So we're aware of any changes from the previous meeting.
Would that be possible to update that as it goes along, whether or not this agenda item passes?
Yeah, we could include that starting with the next meeting with just general information on the structure of the IPO.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right, this is about adding this as a formal agenda item. We have a motion and a second. I will now call for the vote. Mr. Noyes?
No.
Mr. McDonough?
Also, no.
Mr. O'Brien?
No.
Ms. Dubois?
No.
Mr. Fortini?
No.
Ms. Gatzlick?
No.
Mr. Lampert? Mrs. Lampert?
I'm staying also.
Mr. Priest?
No.
Mr. Bryant?
No.
Mr. Wade?
No.
Mr. Callahan?
No.
Mr. Gottlieb?
Yes.
Dr. Potvin?
No.
Myself, no. And Mr. Little?
No.
All right. 1 in favor, 13 in opposition, and 2 abstentions?
I agree.
Okay. So the motion does not carry. We will not add that item to a future agenda at this time. Other proposals from panel members? Dr. Potvin?
Yes, I still very strongly feel, I guess this is something Pine mentioned also, that we really need more information about the dry cask storage, their ultimate disposition, and even detailed structural information about the dry casks and how they're designed. I believe also there was some discussion, I think Dave mentioned that they were in the process of building a new one of some type. Also, there's been some developments in that area. I just showed Jack an article from the April 23rd Science magazine entitled "Finland Could Be the First Country in the World to Bury Nuclear Waste Permanently," and they're doing it by encapsulation. They've already completed the first test this past March, and they're planning to expand their underground storage facility for this stuff, so there would be something to do with it permanently. I think it's important that we understand this. I think it's important that we get the information out to the general public as well as to ourselves. We need the information. I've also identified a distinguished professor of material science and engineering that may be interested in helping us with it as well. And I believe Holtec also agreed that they could provide a subject matter expert to help us with this undertaking as well. So we tried to do something like this in the past, and it failed mostly because of the IWG members abstained. I'm hoping they discuss this so that now that they could cast a vote. So my motion is, I suggest cask information and spent nuclear fuel rods, safe on-site storage with monitoring and prospects for eventual transport to a national long-term off-site facility. So that's the subject that I wish to put onto the agenda.
Okay. Mr. Lampert?
So to ask Mr. Priest, is the state prepared to vote on this tonight?
Yes, we are prepared to vote.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on?
Can I ask Mr. Potvin to expand his, or take away the national part? Because maybe a regional area for holding would be more practical and more possible than a national consensus-based siting?
Well, I think
just to expand not narrow it down,
if I
expand it.
could interject, whether there is a national solution or a regional solution is beyond our capacity to control. So transporting it, and it's really immaterial as to where you're transporting it. Its capacity to be transported is really the operative.
I just wanted to take out the word national.
Okay. Okay. So the dry cast, as I understand it, Dr. Potvin, it is the dry cast storage on the site presently, its future disposition, and the possibility for transporting it elsewhere in the future.
Yes.
All right. You're welcome. Mrs. Lampert.
Yes, I have a question. Were you talking purely about permanent deep geological storage, or were you talking also about interim? I know, for example, the Vermont Nuclear Advisory Committee had a year-long study on interim storage to come up with a recommendation of the state to support or not to support interim storage. So, are you permanent and interim?
Basically, it's not a restricted topic to that extent. I think we need to gather as much information as we possibly can And also entering into this is a report from June 18th this year that nuclear waste can be temporarily stored in Texas and New Mexico according to a Supreme Court vote that was 6-3, overturning a vote that was not going to permit it from the New Orleans federal courts. I don't know if Dave knows of that Supreme Court action or not. But
Well,
there's a lot of information
So
here.
again, where it would be transported to is beyond the scope of the panel to advise or otherwise impact. So I think all we could really realistically cover would be the current dry cask storage as it stands now, the future of the current dry cask storage, and the possibility for transport elsewhere, destination to be determined by actors outside of this panel.
Yes, the destination is something that we cannot certainly settle.
Correct.
That's beyond our authority.
Correct. So with that in mind,
I would have one question for Dr. Popkin.
Mr. Lampert?
I'm not clear whether you are asking for an educational meeting or something that would basically lead to a recommendation.
Well, I think he
I
wants...
think this is really based on spreading information not only to the panel members, but also to the members of the public.
So you're looking really for an educational, informational meeting, is that what I understand? Is my correct?
Yes, that's what I'm making.
Well, and then obviously the information would be informative in terms of a proposed recommendation.
We would then certainly, hopefully, have enough information to consider whether to make a recommendation. But my understanding is this, what he has proposed, is not to make a recommendation, but basically an education on what the whole picture is.
Sure. Other comments, thoughts?
Just a question,
Yes, Mr. O'Brien?
if I could. I mean, right now, we have the dry cask canisters up on the hill. If and when we're ever able to move, to get them ready for shipping, the education process would be to talk about how that's done, because when we did those inside the fuel pool, right? To load the fuel bundles inside, and then we load them down into the cask itself before we moved it out of the building. What is the process of getting that ready for shipment in the future if we don't have the fuel pool available, or how would you do that? I think that would be a nice thing to know, and the process to educate people on what we have to do, what the process is to be able to do that when it comes time to do it.
Agreed. Mrs. Lampert?
I presume if we brought speakers in, it would have to be approved by the panel?
Yes. Well, if he has this individual in mind and Holtec can do it, then that would be part of this motion. If those speakers are unavailable and we have to expand it, then yes.
So
to clarify, you are asking Holtec to make the presentation?
Yes, along with possible other speakers if they agree to do so with the permission of the panel.
Other questions, comments?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Fortini?
I mean, I'm trying to understand here. I mean, the Department of Energy is the one that ultimately has to come up with this whole program. So what are we really trying to do here? I'm trying to understand this.
So you're talking about what the dry cask storage, if this were on an agenda, what is the dry cask storage being used at the site right now? What is the future of that dry cask storage right now?
Yeah,
And what
it's
is
really-
the possibility for transporting the materials there, somewhere else? Destination to be determined.
Yeah, and it's not just Pilgrim. I mean, we're talking about, just down the street here, we have Millstone. We have Connecticut Yankee, we have Rowe. I mean, everybody has spent fuel in casks or some kind of storage. It's really the DOE that's dropping the ball here and really not coming up with a way to take all of this spent fuel and either put it in a temporary repository with the idea that eventually they'll have a place for actually reprocessing the fuel. But my understanding is too, and Dave, you can correct me on this, but didn't already Holtec get a temporary repository approved federally in New Mexico? and the local agencies or the local governments have basically held that up. So I guess I'm trying to understand what leverage we have here. To me, it makes more sense to bring someone from the DOE here, or someone that can speak intelligently to what the plan is to actually take all of the spent fuel.
So that's why I wanted to, we have no control over whether there's going to be a federal or regional repository for this or any other spent nuclear fuel. That is beyond the ability of this panel or the governor of the Commonwealth, who we advise, or other state agencies to control. However, there is, I would think, a public interest in understanding the dry cask storage on the site currently, what the possibilities with the current dry cask storage are, and the capacity or capability to ship it elsewhere should a destination become available to receive it.
Kevin, we're basically, the motion from Dr. Poppin then is to provide an educational presentation with Holtec, with some to-be-named expert on, these are the casks that are at Plymouth.
Correct.
This is how they were made, this is how they're monitored, this is what's there,
Yes.
and this is how they could potentially, in the future, exit the site.
Yes, correct. That's the limits of what we can directly or indirectly control. Yes, Ms. Dubois?
Just to say that DOE has been working on and will continue to work on until they run out of whatever, a consent-based siting program. And it's worth talking to DOE and bringing them in and getting involved in that so that we can move it along, because we are one of the front line nuclear decommissioned sites that have a big stake in not wanting to see something go awry in our neck of the woods. And
Kevin?
that we know that it's not a permanent storage site, we know that for sure. So what are you thinking? And have them tell us what they're thinking so that we have a way to move forward with, the town of Plymouth move forward with what you want to do next, and the communities that are around here, and the rest of us get a sense of understanding of, okay, what are you going to do with the 85 to 90% of fuel that's still in that thing?
So-
There's a lot to know, and I think we could do it within that framework.
So Pine or Kevin, just to add to Pine's comment, I think it would be, we could do this in two steps at a couple of agenda items, right? So one is the education of what's on site, what was built there, how is it monitored, and then another presentation that Pine's talking about, okay, what's the DOE's role, what's the future of how this process is going to go going forward. And we're already going to be reaching out to DOE, right, for this grant money. Maybe we can connect those things and see if we can get them to get a speaker to come up and talk about the DOE's role. Just a suggestion.
Understood. So bringing the DOE or any federal agency or prospective regional repository in, that would have to be a separate agenda item. I think that's beyond the scope of what's the dry cask, what could it be transported. So we can take that up next. On the topic of dry cask storage, current dry cask, the future of the current dry cask on the site, as well as the possibility to transport the dry cask or its contents, their contents, off-site would be what we're talking about now. Mr. Lambert.
Just to pick up on what Ms. Dubois said about consent-based siting, DOE has funded a quite wide-ranging national and international study of that. There have been a number of meetings, not only throughout the United States, but some involved in Europe to take the learning from there on that particular subject. There is a major meeting planned for Denver in September on that subject that will result in a report of what a lot of people have put a lot of thought into, of the pluses and minuses of consent. And I would suggest that we're going to get into that. Perhaps the people who are responsible for the study, we don't need DOE because they basically ran it, should be included.
Okay, so let's get back to dry cask storage. So does anyone have anything else they would like to add on dry cask storage and whether or not we should add that to an agenda? So Dr. Potvin has made a motion to include that on a future agenda. Is there a second to that motion?
I'd second.
All right, Mr. Noyes has seconded. Any further discussion on the dry cask storage about whether or not we should add the dry cask storage topic to a future agenda?
And so just one thing, if I could.
Mr. Fortini.
So who's actually going to give that presentation on the dry cask? Is that something Holtec's going to do?
Holtec would be part of it, and Dr. Potvin has a prospective speaker in mind as well that I would circle back with him and review and see whether that is, obviously that person needs to be available and consent to appear. We don't have subpoena power or anything like that. Any other questions or discussion?
I just have one
Little?
question or comment.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, sorry. We've had concerns expressed about the security of the dry cask storage, and I understand it was inspected recently by the NRC. I believe that was in the report tonight. So I'd like to understand with this presentation, what are the security requirements and how are they met? I'm assuming they're in compliance since they're just inspected by the NRC in the last quarter.
Okay. Any other discussion on this topic? All right. Call for the vote. Whether or not to add this dry cast item to a future agenda. Mr. Noyes.
Yes.
Mr. McDonough.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien.
Yes.
Ms. Dubois.
Yes.
Mr. Fortini.
Yes.
Ms. Gatzlick.
Yes.
Mr. Lampert.
Yes.
Mrs. Lampert.
Yes.
Mr. Priest.
Yes.
Mr. Bryant.
Yes.
Mr. Wade.
Yes.
Mr. Callahan.
Yes.
Mr. Gottlieb.
Yes.
Dr. Potvin.
Yes.
Myself, yes. And Mr. Little.
Yes.
Okay, 16 in favor, 0 in opposition, no abstentions. That will be added to a future agenda. Now, Ms. Dubois, you mentioned the idea of bringing DOE in to talk about a repository and the efforts to cite a repository for long-term storage. Did you want to add anything to that beyond what you said previously? Don't feel obligated.
No, I'd rather not take it up right now.
Okay. Did you want to make a motion to that regard, or would you like to let that sleeping dog lie for the time being?
We'll just see how we progress and take it up again.
Okay.
Because there is active work going on, and I think that, people who have the time and wherewithal can pay attention to all of that.
All right.
It's worth looking at.
Anyone else have any other topics they would like to add to a future agenda while we are on the subject of adding things to future agendas? All right, hearing and seeing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, that being a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn, having concluded our business?
Yes, I move we adjourn.
Mrs. Lampert has moved. Do we have a second?
I second.
Dr. Potvin has seconded that we adjourn. Any objections? Seeing none, Mr. Noyes?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Ms. Dubois?
Yes.
Mr. Fortini?
Yes.
Ms. Gatzlick?
Yes.
Mr. Lampert? Mrs. Lampert,
Yes.
Mr. Priest,
Yes.
Mr. Bryant,
Yes.
Mr. Wade,
Yes.
Mr. Callahan,
Yes.
Mr. Gottlieb,
Yes.
Dr. Potvin,
Yes.
myself, yes, and Mr. Little?
Yes.
All right, it is unanimous. We are adjourned, having concluded our business at 8:57 PM. Thank you.